Good evening, everybody. Oh, sorry, good afternoon in South Africa. It's our evening time here for myself and Stephen here in Australia. I'm George. I'm based in Perth in Western Australia. We've got Stephen, who is the regional marketing director, and he oversees recruitment in Africa for Griffith University. We're participating today in a little bit of a roundtable discussion for you to sort of get an idea about Griffith, what's it like to study in Australia, as well as also living in the Gold Coast. We just got a little bit of time to spare while we wait for people to sign into the webinar. We do know it's lunchtime in South Africa. Just for some housekeeping, this webinar will be recorded and reshared to everybody that's signed up onto the webinar. It'll also be shared throughout all of our platforms. So please take a photo of that barcode and sign up to receive all this information as always. Stephen, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes and then we can sort of get going.
Of course, thank you.
Again, everybody, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section or in the chat box, and we will get to those a little bit after our sort of roundtable discussion that we'll have at the beginning of this presentation. All right, Stephen, I think let's give this a go. I think we've got around 15 people in the webinar already, which is good. And we'll let people just sign in as they come on live.
For sure.
All right, everybody. So today we've got Stephen Lewin here. You would have seen him if you did watch our last Expo in March. Stephen's worked with Global for a very long time. We value his insights. We also appreciate the way Stephen conducts himself with the students and his length of time that he takes to help nurture that process to decide on where you would like to study. One of the things we at Global always push through is, take the time to understand what you want to study first. No matter where you study in the world, really focus on your passions and what you feel that you will succeed in life with, because it's not just the job, it's not just a career, it's a life passion. So Stephen, on that note, I'd like to, if you could just do a brief introduction about yourself, would be great.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Griffith University for the last 7 years, and before that had a little over 4 years with the University of Queensland, and that's where I started working with you and the team and your family in 2010. So I guess I got into counselling students or helping students make informed decisions, as I like to say, from an English teaching background. So I used to help students in Southeast Asia improve their English, specifically to take and prepare for the IELTS exam, an English exam that non-native speakers need to have when they apply. So after years of helping students get their language skills up to a point where they can study at higher education level, it was a natural process for me to continue to help students with the next step, and that is thinking about the different types of universities in Australia and the locations and the different degrees and learning styles and the sort of outcomes that they were looking for. So for me, it's a joy to work every day. That transformation of filling gaps of knowledge that students that are looking for their career, hoping to have really ambitious career goals, and guiding them through, specifically about Griffith, but in general about just making informed decisions.
Can you tell us a little bit about Griffith, Stephen?
Yeah, sure. So Griffith is a young university. It's a government university, and it started with a purpose to improve access to higher education. So prior to Griffith opening its doors in the 70s, to go to university, you needed typically very high grades from high school, and it was quite expensive, and still is very expensive to study. So the philosophy was to provide a greater access to higher education, so challenging the typical entry requirements for university and providing more services and support to get a wider range of students into tertiary studies. And that has continued. Even today, we've got a very higher than normal number of people who are the first in their family to ever go to university. And we're very proud of that sort of tradition, that philosophy, the background. We're also the first university in Australia to look at those future problems that no one was delivering back then. So, specifically the first university to offer environmental science. So this, and this stays with us today as a commitment to creating an equitable and environmentally sustainable society. But we do listen to students, obviously, and we do know that students that are coming to the university are preparing for their careers. So it's important that the university offers real-life industry experiences with the degrees, providing a range of employment initiatives that students can have access to, and helping them as they transition through the university and out into a career so that they are job ready, if you like. And the university is the first university to actually offer international studies in relation to, specifically for China. And that stays with us today, that philosophy of creating global citizenship. So Griffith's degrees have an international focus. It's not just an Australian education, it's an opportunity for students to share their experiences with local students and vice versa, and preparing everyone to be able to be work ready, but around the world. So in that short history, we've now grown to 50,000 students with over 4,000 staff and about 8,000 international students. And that's a really diverse range of international students from over 130 nationalities, studying across more than 200 degrees.
The direction with Griffith in terms of its focus and why it wants to keep excelling in this sort of new age sort of world that we live in terms of industry, is that part of the just the board, the management? Where does that philosophy come from? Is that like all the lecturers involved in it? Just a little bit of background on that for students would be great.
Well, the background of the university was really, what is missing? What are the gaps in society? How do we get more people studying tertiary education that want to study at university? Where are our guiding principles in relation to the environment and equity? And how is Australia communicating and relating to our closest Asian nations? So this is where it started and stays with us today. And I guess to the point that offering undergraduate degrees and master degrees and now obviously research that is really building the reputation of the university, and that sort of word of mouth of the excellence in research that filters through to the rankings is improving each year.
And how is Griffith ranked globally?
It's ranked in the top 2% of universities worldwide, but I think a lot of universities can say that. There are 25,000 universities around the world. So I guess, how does Griffith rank in that top 2%? Well, compared with other young universities around the world, so those would be universities that are under 50 years of age, Griffith ranks in the top 30 for the Times Higher Young University rankings, and in the 33 in the world for the QS top 50 universities under 50. But when compared to all universities, Griffith sits quite comfortably in that 200 to 300 range, and not just with one or two ranking systems, but with all of the key or major ranking systems available. So ranked at 191 with the Leiden ranking system, in the 200 to 300 range for the academic ranking of world universities, and that was a new step up from the 300 to 400 range, and that happened just 2 weeks ago. The US News Best Global Universities have Griffith ranked at 217. The Times Higher Griffith is ranked 225, 245 for the Shanghai Jiaotong. The QS World Rankings and the National Taiwan Rankings also rank Griffith in the 290 and 293 respectively. So very tightly grouped around that 200 to 300 range, not just the 1 or 2 ranking systems that allows a university to say that we're in the top 2%. But a new ranking that has come out that we are also very proud of is the Times Higher Impact Rankings. And this is the performance of universities against the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, to achieve a better and more sustainable future of all. And Griffith is ranked 38 in the world for those impact rankings, and we're very, very proud of that. But it's not just for those people that do look at rankings as being important, and I'm not saying that they are important or not, or they're not important, but I do know that it's a very popular way of choosing universities. And if you're the sort of person that does look at rankings, I'd also think it's important to look at subject rankings, which several key ranking systems do offer students to choose and to see and compare with other universities. When looking at those subject rankings, Griffith is top area of study is nursing and midwifery, which is number 2 in the world in the Shanghai Jiaotong, and number 1 in Australia. Hospitality and tourism is ranked 5 in the world, number 1 in Australia, and marine and ocean engineering is ranked in the top 20 of the world. But there's a further 25 subjects or areas of study, including the number 1 law program in Australia, that is in that top 150 to 150 across business, engineering, sports, political science and humanities, and the natural sciences, health science. So we're a diverse in our offerings of programs, and it's really hard to say that there is a weakness in what we are offering.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you said that. For us at Global, whenever you talk about rankings, they are a good conversation to have, and they are important. But at the same time, it's the employability. What's the employability rating like? What are the businesses that are networking with that university? Those are some of the more important questions that we'd sort of like to steer our consultations through, especially with Griffith as well. Personally, having friends that have gone to Griffith, from 2007 and seeing new students in 2012 and seeing new students now in 2020 with this new online conversation that we'll get into later. If you could go a little bit into that employability. I know I'm probably skipping a couple of questions here, but I think it's pertinent for people to understand how important Griffith connects with businesses.
Yeah, look, it's little known that, how do people find jobs? It's, and that's what leads to employability. Knowing about jobs available, then having the skills to navigate the application system and putting yourself out there. So that first step of finding those jobs, it's around 70% of all jobs are not advertised. So for students that are only looking, or graduates that are only looking for jobs online or in newspapers or in bulletin boards or wherever, they're only looking at 30% of the jobs available. So it's really important that that they have a very broad network in place, that they find from academics, that they can be introduced from their classmates, that can be introduced from other students, and through experience and finding people in the industry, or being connected to people in the industry through mentoring programs and other leadership programs, and opportunities to attend lectures and things like that. And that's where I think Griffith does very well. The life experience, the industry experience that offer students that sort of close access to a broader network is really important. The work integrated learning components, the internships and industry placements offer that. There's numerous leadership programs and inspiring or challenging students to put themselves into competitions and to apply for positions and to showcase their work is really important and important to learn and to fail and ultimately succeed. The mentoring program, there are over a dozen different types of mentoring programs that students can access, giving them face-to-face, one-to-one conversations or virtual, but one-to-one conversations with industry leaders, guiding them, opening their minds and their industry for people wanting to get into that industry to learn about what newspapers do they read, what websites do they subscribe to, how do they find jobs, what is their career process or steps in the career. Do they know anyone that's looking for work? You know, it's really important to have those one-to-one connections. The Careers and Employment Service at Griffith does an amazing job, full of fabulous professionals with career development backgrounds and career psychologists and etc. And so they offer one-to-one appointments as well to talk to students about their careers, about where they're going, to help them with resources to build better resumes and letters to apply for jobs, to help with their career planning. What's the next step and where do they want to go and what are the steps to get there, as well as even coaching students prior to going into job interviews and giving them that sort of edge. Otherwise, you know, students need to build their network. They have to come out of their shell and connect with the community through formal and informal interaction. So like the International Student Buddy program, which connects international students with local students. There's peer-assisted learning. So, you know, getting some guidance or help with their subject from another student rather than just waiting for the next tutorial, or joining one of the numerous virtual or on campus activities that are run by the various student societies and associations. You know, joining in on some jam sessions or quizzes or coffee catch-ups or you know, virtual Instagram live parties and things like that. These are all really, really important, not just for the social aspect, but for that networking and to you know, have conversations. Where are you working? What sort of leads? You know, how did you find this? And so that's really important for students to have available to them. And I think Griffith provides that for them really well.
Yeah, no, I've just from, you know, listening into the alumni that we've sent to Griffith, you know, that's always the one thing that sticks out is the support post-studies, the support looking for a job and the mentoring. It's always the one conversation that seems to always stand out. And that's what we want to hear from universities as well. You know, we always think of it as it takes a village to raise a kid, and, you know, it takes a family to send a student from Southern Africa abroad. So it's great to see this. Steve, in terms of the campus, I do believe it is a multi-campus university. Yeah,
so Griffith has 5 physical campuses, and they're all located in and around Southeast Queensland, so in Brisbane and the Gold Coast. And there's also the digital campus. So our 6th campus is actually a campus. There is a director for that campus, and it's got all the services and facilities that you would expect of a physical campus. The most popular campus, though, the largest campus for both domestic students and international students, is the Gold Coast campus. This is a beautiful campus set about 4 or 5 kilometers from the beach. So it's not actually on the beach, but there's bike lanes to ride to the university, as well as public transport, which takes 15-20 minutes from downtown. Surfers Paradise. And that's not just an adjective of the area, but that's the actual name of the area downtown, called Surfers Paradise. It is a surfers paradise, and students enjoy that sort of lifestyle. Most of the teaching disciplines are delivered out of that campus, and it's also grown in popularity because recently the Australian government classified the Gold Coast as a regional centre. So that means that if students are studying and graduate from the Gold Coast campus, they would be eligible to apply for an extra year of post-study work rights after they graduate from their degree. So that is increasing the attractiveness of going to the Gold Coast for international students. The initial, an opening campus called Nathan, which is where I'm located, is set in a forest, but it's only about 12 kilometres or 10 kilometres from the city centre, from Brisbane. So it's a beautiful environment and offers a very calm and blissful environment to study. And there are about 13,000 students here at the Nathan campus, studying across business and science and aviation, law, technology, and so most of our areas of study are delivered out of the Nathan campus. And the digital campus, where students are beginning their degrees and have been joining the university over the last 18 months with the borders closed. This is not a new campus. We've actually been delivering blended learning and 100% online degrees for over 20 years, and we've got around 12,000 students enrolled in the digital campus. But I think it's important for students to know that if they're not used to what a blended learning is, this is the same academics delivering the same content and to the same students as for online, as well as for students who are on campus. So it's exactly the same. And so when students are able to come to Australia, they will have the same lecture, they'll have the same classmates, they'll be studying the same materials, they'll have the same assignments. It'll be a seamless transition back onto campus when that's possible. It also comes with the full range of support that's available, whether it's the careers support that I just mentioned, or academic support, networking support, and social support. That's all available for students, regardless if you're on campus or off campus.
And how students that are offshore have started at the moment? Has it been a teething? Has it been success? What's sort of been the feedback on that?
Look, it's not for everyone. It can be a real steep learning curve to one, study at a foreign university, and secondly, to be able to tackle it online. We've surveyed students and we're really happy with the results. Comparing students who started online with the student survey for during a period the previous year where students were all on campus, the actual satisfaction rose 1.8%. So it was, which was a really positive outcome. Everyone worked hard to ensure that the services there, the teaching and learning was there, the infrastructure was there, and that went along with it. So what we're seeing is that students, even onshore, are enjoying this blended learning mode of taking, of watching their lectures online, and instead of needing to go to campus for that 50-minute lecture, they can actually do it in the convenience of their home, and be able to have access to that lecture for the full trimester. So, go to it, fast forward, pause, rewind. So no more need to share some dodgy notes with your classmate because you were hungover or something like that and couldn't make an 8 a.m. lecture on a Monday. So it's the convenience that it provides is making a difference, and students are enjoying it. And I think it's here to stay.
Yeah, we do see that as well. We see this big merger between online and physical. For us in Southern Africa, and especially me being an ex-international student and gone through the process myself, I was right at the end of when online just started happening, and I saw the benefits of it, but then helping students counsel them and see their progress, and some of my own students that I've sent through, seeing them adopt both, especially during a pandemic, has been enlightening for me. I think it goes to showcase how this generation is a lot stronger than we all think that they are, especially when you look at the news and that. I think it can take hat off to kids that are studying online currently.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Stephen, you were saying?
Well, I think it's been somewhat easier for undergraduate students that have just completed possibly the last year of their high school, or even more, completing their studies from home. So they're very much used to the blended learning, as opposed to those that finished their degree maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago and are thinking about studying postgraduate. So they're not only getting back into studying again after a few years break, but trying to do it online. It can be a real challenge. You've got to be very disciplined. You've got to have really good time management skills, as well as the space, the physical space, to be able to sit down and concentrate and be in a mind space to be able to undertake tertiary studies.
What are the areas of studies at Griffith, and are they all available next trimester?
Yeah, so I was mentioning a whole bunch of areas before, but it is a comprehensive university. There's architecture, criminology and law, planning, education, engineering, IT, music and performing arts. There's visual and creative arts. One of the widest range of health sciences available in Australia, medicine, dentistry, etc. Humanities, government, international relations, and even aviation, and of course education, which is highly ranked. So there are not many degrees that Griffith doesn't have. And in terms of availability, you're absolutely right. During this period where we've got many students joining us online because they can't come into Australia yet, it's really challenged the university to be able to make a decision whether a particular degree, the quality of that program is a sacrifice if students are studying it online. And there are definitely some programs, if you think about courses that have a lot of clinical work, or needing to be in Australia for internships, or design work, or the technology that the university can offer, it can't be replicated in some cases. So we've just made that decision to not offer the degree to those students, or to students offshore, but only to students onshore. There are other degrees, though, that maybe students could start the program first, and then complete components once they are able to travel to Australia. And then there are other degrees that are very flexible, that are easily delivered in for longer term for students to be able to undertake from offshore. And courses like business, Bachelor of Environment, Bachelor of Health Science, all the popular areas, that study areas that are popular in your area, George. So Bachelor of Psychological Science, Bachelor of Public Health, Master of Business, Master of Global Public Health, Master of Professional Accounting. All these programs are available for students to start online and continue until such a time that they are able to arrive in Australia. Those programs that do have some limitations, for example, the Doctor of Medicine, we can offer the first year for the Doctor of Medicine, but no more. You've got to be in Australia for the second year onwards. Nursing, only the first trimester can be undertaken offshore. From the second trimester onwards, you need to be onshore. but there are, other programs that we just don't feel comfortable with the quality, so it's going to be compromised, and we just don't offer it to offshore students. Some, Bachelor of Physiotherapy or paramedicine, speech pathology, dental technology, teaching, and architecture are areas that we cannot unfortunately offer to offshore students at this point.
Yeah, and for everybody listening in onto that as well, please reach out to us at Global, or even to Stephen, and even visit the website, and we'll gladly go through it with you to see what your options are. But Stephen, I know we want to get into the scholarships. I know everybody's hounding to ask about the scholarships here, but can I ask a little bit about the onshore? Are any students offshore or students studying international able to come on campus? Any news on the borders?
Yeah, so students that are here in Australia have able to go on campus have been going to campus since May last year, so well over a year. We've had only a couple of very short lockdowns. We've been very disciplined as a society here in Queensland, and it's worked in our favour. So today we've got quite lax laws. We are being mindful of closed office spaces and having a mask when we're walking around, and obviously sanitizing our hands and everything like that. But we're going to sporting venues, we're going to clubs, and we're dancing. We're going out to restaurants and picnics and etc. So so everyone on campus has been enjoying the campus facilities and have done for quite some time. In terms of the future, though, can't tell, and I don't think anyone can tell at the moment, George. I'd love to have a crystal ball and tonight show the roadmap of Australia's borders opening, that not one person can tell us what it looks like at the moment. What we do know is it revolves around vaccines, and not only vaccines for students coming or visitors coming to Australia, but more importantly, from a border opening perspective, it's Australians getting vaccinated. So after a long wait, the Australian government finally said that there needs to be a benchmark of around 80% of the population to be vaccinated, where it feels comfortable, the government feels comfortable that we can perhaps do away with hotel quarantine and settle for home isolation for a certain period, that we can have travel bubbles in place, and that we can look at the safe return of international students. We don't know what that would look like, though. Right now, there are over 160,000 students with a visa for Australia that are not in Australia, which is an awful lot of people to try to get in Australia, and that want to come to Australia as soon as those borders are open. But I think it'll be a real challenge, and will need to be mapped out by the government on how they plan to get 160,000 students with a visa into Australia, and what sort of, I guess, system would need to be in place to ensure that those students that have been waiting the longest may have an opportunity to come in first, and those students that have not yet started their degree may need to wait until such time that that blockage, if you like, 160,000, George, that's over 6,500 full jumbo jets. That's there's only a couple of flights that come in from Africa a day. So and we don't even know if when borders open, it'll be every country in the world, or whether the government will decide, it can only be, Singapore or China or New Zealand or Dubai, for example. We have no idea how that would look. But rest assured, there will be plenty of communication coming up in the next few months. The vaccine rollout and the rate that Australians getting vaccinated is on target, and meeting expectations for that 80% to be completed by the end of this year. So, I would be hoping that we could be looking at students arriving at next year sometime, if not from some neighbouring countries even before then.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time that we live in, and for everybody listening in, we will keep everybody updated as well. We do have a webinar with our migration agents that's happening tomorrow. So anybody that is interested in learning a little bit more about migration to Australia and what that entails, please do sign up for that webinar as well. But Stephen, I just wanted to say thank you on that. I know it really puts people on the tops of their feet when asked about the borders in Australia. It is a cautious question that we're all mindful of. So I do appreciate you answering that. The fun question that everybody's been asking about, scholarships. We see scholarships all over the place now on the internet. Students, it's the first thing that they search for now as well. What's Griffith offering, and can you explain how differentiates from the others?
Yeah, look, I think it's been really important that we recognise that a lot of families that have been planning for their study in Australia and overseas for many years are facing some hardship of some kind. And it was really terrific of the university to respond the way it did. It's investing around $26 million into international scholarships each year, and that was for last year, for this year, and the executive group have now approved that for next year. So we're really happy to be able to advise that the 2021 scholarships are available for the 3 intakes for 2022. In the past, there were just a few scholarships available, but now there are many available. And in fact, all students that are applying for a coursework program and are deemed at a 5.0 on a 7 scale will automatically be offered a 20% tuition fee reduction. And that is for the duration of the degree. On the proviso, there are a couple of terms and conditions. Obviously, one of the terms and conditions, the students remain enrolled full time. So that's a requirement, as well as maintaining that GPA of 5.0. So as long as students can maintain that 5.0 average on a 7 scale, they'll continue to be offered on a trimester by trimester basis a further 20% tuition fee reduction. For those students that are doing better or achieving higher results and are deemed a 5.5 on a 7 scale, they're automatically offered a 25% tuition fee reduction for the duration of the program. So that's a significant change from the past, where there might be a few $6,000 scholarships or maybe a few $10,000. So this is really making a big difference for families and who could reinvest that saving into building up their IT infrastructure at home, or their internet, or making an environment conducive for studying, etc. We've been able to maintain the Remarkable Scholarship. So this scholarship does require students to apply for and does require a look at your academic transcripts, and they'll be compared with other applicants for this scholarship, as well as a personal statement looking at the students' ambitions and their goals, etc. So there are 3 rounds for that Remarkable Scholarship. There are a limited number. It's very competitive, but it does offer a 50% tuition fee reduction for, again, the duration of the program. But it's not only the scholarships that are helping students. The university has made a number of changes and been flexible to its policies or procedures or practice in terms of those students that need to take an IELTS or a TOEFL English exam. We've broadened the range of exams available. So we accept Duolingo or Cambridge LinguaSkill, or the indicator test, or the home edition for TOEFL, and we've extended the validity of that for 3 years instead of 2. We also know that some students have not been able to do their typical high school final exams because of availability or other reasons. And so we've worked with students in looking at their predicted results or where there have been delays in examination results, and still being able to offer places to students. So that's been recognised as being important. and we're continuing that for next year as well. We also have reassessed what it takes for a student to accept an offer and for them to receive a confirmation of enrolment. So before these policies changed, students to accept their offer would pay the full first trimester fee, so around about 15,000 Australian dollars, and then the overseas health cover. And then we would issue a confirmation of enrolment, and they wouldn't need to pay again until the start of the second semester. But what we've been able to do is to offer a $3,000 deposit plus the overseas health cover, and that gives students a chance to keep money in their pockets until up to census date, which is 4 weeks into that first trimester. So that's also helped students and their families a lot. There are a lot, as we mentioned, there are a lot of uncertainties with studying online, and so we also made it easier for students to try, and if it wasn't, or if it isn't working out, we've made it easier for them to withdraw. So students outside of Australia with travel restrictions preventing them from traveling to Australia, they can withdraw from their program up to census date with no financial penalty. So they'll get a transcript, just have W. It doesn't count that if they're failing subjects, it doesn't count to a GPA or anything like that. So that's also helped give confidence to students to give this a go. Maybe for the first time ever to be at university and studying in blended learning mode.
No, I think that's fantastic to see that level of support. You know, it really makes a difference in people's lives, especially in Southern Africa where it's been hit, you know, very badly with the pandemic as well. So I do appreciate that, Stephen, and to all of us at Global, you know, it's one of the conversations we have with people when they're making applications is to do look for those scholarships. We know that full scholarships are very few and very hard to achieve, but part scholarships, you know, the offerings that Griffith is offering, it really makes a difference to families, especially in that application process.
Definitely, and to some extent, this is about us, you know, saving costs, these scholarships, and when you think about during this period where students are joining us from their home, they're also saving living expenses. So they're able to stay home and pocket that money that they'd be spending. And that's, you know, that could be up to 22,000 Australian dollars a year. So even, so if they're on 25% scholarship for a master degree, for example, that would be about a $15,000 scholarship, and a year of staying at home, over $30,000 of $100,000 investment in a 2-year masters. That's, you know, it's significant, and hopefully will make a difference for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially when, you know, it comes to once Australia borders opens, and if you are graduating at the right time and you're able to come back into Australia and get that skilled visa to get that work experience to save that type of money, you know, it's a huge advantage that, you know, I sincerely ask people to consider when looking at Australia as a study option.
The Australian government, sorry, George, the Australian government have said, though, that if a student is enrolled in the program and can't travel to Australia because of borders closing, that once they have that visa, the time that they are studying does count towards that post-study work visa. So they still have access to that, even though they are starting their degree online.
Yeah, and it was a smart move by the Australian government to offer that as well, in terms of the amount of students that study in Australia. You know, it's a huge industry for Australia. 2 questions I'm going to hit you with, yeah. One, in terms of industry at Griffith and in Queensland, what are the key industries that people should look at when trying to decide what to study if Brisbane or the Gold Coast is their focus? And then the second question is, what advice would you give them in terms of making a successful application?
Well, we're seeing quite a lot of migration coming to Queensland. So not only from overseas and shifting patterns of international students from moving from one state to the next. It's quite easy to see that when you see the numbers of students that are increasing in Queensland and decreasing in other states. But we're also seeing it onshore. So we're seeing a lot more students apply for the university that have been in South Australia or in Victoria or New South Wales. So there is a shift there. There are students talking to each other about opportunities in Queensland. It's not just about the freedoms that we're enjoying during this period of the pandemic. Queensland is a very resource-rich state, so we're getting a lot of students interested in technology and engineering and the environment. We've got some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, and which is driving a thriving tourism industry and the services that go along with that. So that is up, but also health. We're seeing a huge increase in health practitioners. So and particularly with the offerings that the university has for students at the Gold Coast and that regional status, that is a huge growth area for the university, and opportunities for work afterward are excellent. And I've been listening to an academic from the health group who's a specialist in pharmacy, that he's saying it doesn't matter what area of health you're working in at the moment, but there are excellent opportunities, double-digit growth, and so that is driving a lot of students into those programs. Sorry, the second part of the question, George.
What advice would you give somebody to make a successful application?
Well, look, I think Australia in general does this very well. In most cases, I think Australia it has a lot of transparency in its application. So I know that it can be quite complicated to apply for universities in some countries, mainly because there is limited capacity. But in Australia, the universities, the vast majority, 38 out of 40 or something like that, are public universities. They've got tens of thousands of students. They've got unlimited capacity to deliver programs for 80% of their offerings. And Griffith is no different. So in most cases, we're looking for students that have an average, and just as I started, George, we're a university that is trying to improve access to higher education. So we're not pushing the envelope for students to be extremely high achieving just to be able to get into programs like law or engineering or the biomedical science. A credit average can still have lots of opportunities at the university. There are some courses though that are really competitive, but there are not that many. And so, leading into dentistry or some of the medical science programs. There are a couple of programs that require auditions, like the Bachelor of Music, but in the vast majority of cases, as long as you've completed your first or your senior high school and your university grades, you'll get an offer. So we don't look at or ask students to submit, extracurricular evidence or academic references or such like. There are no external exams required in typically, and in fact, the university has really reviewed what it asked for students now, and we're being so flexible in our first year for programs like engineering and forensic science, for example, that if students are not meeting a level of expectation for maths or for physics or biology, we actually have flexibility for students to choose those subjects as an elective in their first year so they can complete it. You've got to remember that a lot of 13, 14, 15-year-olds are choosing their high school subjects without really understanding what they want to study at university. And I think it's a shame if you've got a student that just loved to do business subjects, in grade 10, then realize, well, they actually are really interested in studying occupational therapy in their senior years and can't do it because they didn't take a a health science program, it's a really unfair. So I really like the way that the university is making it easier for and more flexible for students to join, regardless of what their background is.
Yeah, I just love how you said that. I think that's so important for people to understand that it's a world of opportunity out there. I know I'm going to tag the global catchphrase there, but it really is. There's so much opportunity out there, and the chance to have yourself presenting this information to us, really, Stephen, thank you very much. I've got no more questions here. I don't see any questions from any students. I think you've been more than transparent with everything that you've said as well. Does anybody have any further questions for Stephen? I know I've read a couple throughout our conversation. Leave it out to the table here. I've got a question for you, Stephen. The last webinar we did, you told me a little bit about what you enjoy around campus. This webinar, I'm going to ask you favorite spot in the Gold Coast to go and check out. One spot, not two.
Okay. There's a small park that I love to take my family to called at Miami Beach, which is a small area, and we just love to go to that park, have a picnic. I take my Weber and in the back of the car, and we just sort of set it up and have a bit of a barbecue and throw the frisbee and kick a ball and cool down in the water afterwards. So that would be my favorite spot, I think.
Brilliant. For everybody listening in, we will be sending you this recording just so that you can share it with your family, friends, and again, schools and teachers will receive this webinar as well. In that email, we'll have some links to Griffith and some of the scholarship information as well that we will link with everybody as well. By all means, please get in touch with Global, Stephen, myself. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you. Stephen, I'll let you close off this webinar.
No, thank you very much. It's a great privilege and honor to be able to just share the information I know about the university. And as I said, it's not going to be for everyone, and I wouldn't want everyone to come to Griffith, but hopefully there's enough information that guides students into making an informed decision. And if it ticks a lot of boxes for you, then that would be terrific to explore it further, and we'd be happy to guide you further as you progress your decision.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.